And then the second message that I've been given, it's revival in an old church in Kenya. Revival in an old church in Kenya. In a vision, I was taken to a part of Nairobi where there is a church, a Pentecostal church building where Christians gather, which has existed, according to the Holy Spirit, since the 1980s. It is an old Pentecostal and evangelical church. So when I was outside, I just arrived at the yard where that building is. And then I didn't go inside the building. I just stood outside, a distance a bit away from the church building. There was a combination of fervent worship and prayer. Suddenly, I saw flames of fire descend from above, from heaven, to engulf that building as if it were burning. And then I was asking myself, what does it mean? What does the vision mean? The Spirit of God said, this is a spiritual awakening. Many concerned saints must nurture the revival that God has birthed in that church. So, there is an old Pentecostal church with an old building that was constructed in the 1980s. And the way I see it, this old Pentecostal church has got a vernacular name. Unlike other churches which have got English names, it has got a vernacular name. It doesn't mean that they preach in vernacular throughout, but it has got a vernacular what? Name. God is birthing a spiritual awakening in that church. There are people who have been praying for many years for revival in that church. The church, it has got the branches in other parts of Kenya. It has got a vernacular name. This is what the Holy Spirit told me. So God is birthing a spiritual awakening. The leaders of that church are now old. The leaders, the people who are in senior leadership, they are now old. It's not a church which is led by a young person like myself. The leaders of the church are now old. They are people who are technically in a retirement section of a population. If it is a secular job, but we don't retire from the work of God. Yes, so God is birthing a spiritual awakening. Because the Holy Spirit was telling me that there are promises that God gave through words of prophets to some people in the senior leadership of that denomination, that they will not sleep in the dust of the earth, to wait for the regeneration and the perfection of the church when Jesus Christ returns, without seeing a visitation of that denomination. How that denomination was born earlier than the 1980s, because it existed even in the late 70s, the church that I'm talking about. I've never been to the concerned church. The Spirit of God said the vision to create that Pentecostal denomination, it came as a vision from God to the founder of that ministry. The founder of that ministry, I saw a man. That's how I would speak. I would speak the vision. So God made certain guarantees and the promises to the man of God who started that ministry, that he will not sleep in the dust of the earth until he sees spiritual awakening. So the time is imminent. So Christians must nurture that atmosphere of prayer, nurture that attitude of prayer for the spiritual awakening to take place. I see that it will affect virtually the whole body of Christ through that Pentecostal church with a vernacular name. This is what I was shown.